Okay, so what does democratization entails within this context? And by elaborating what it entails, we then be able to discuss how to make it happen, how to remake democracy and remake from time to time. What are the elements we need to do? First of all, I would like to suggest that both religion, nation state are a kind of fiction. We don't have a specific meaning for everyone. And by leaving it open, the notions of religion, whatever it is, what sort of perspective the interpretation will be, is still useful because it provides a sense of direction, sense of good to bring into being. So because of the problem of making fixed, so what really matter is the fixing in more practical way, in more consistent with the value that we want to bring, the value of democracy, the value of respecting other human being as participant of public life. Okay, so by treating religion and nation state as kind of fiction, we don't have a fixed meaning, and then we want to actualize in the real sense, then there are two things at stake. One is the ideals, one is the real. And reality is socially constructed. This is one way of epistemologically sensible to understand, because reality is socially constructed. So then how to bring religion into practice is also a matter of construction, as well as the way nation state should be working. So it's also a matter of social construction. And if we are talking about social construction, there is an ideal which still subject to negotiation, fixation, and also the reality is the consequence of the way we are fixing up. Okay, let's take the case of Indonesia. We have the ideals religious practice, whatever it is, and it's never become a solid consensus. And we have the reality of Indonesia as an archipelagic country. We have particular set of history. We have diversity at stake and so forth. So then, in dealing with unfixed ideal, then there was an attempt to engage in the political engineering by inventing the idea of state ideology. We call it Pancasila. And the Pancasila itself has never been fixed in its meaning, but leaving the meaning open is what makes people willing to negotiate, willing to talk, willing to engage in dialogue. Otherwise, we are just killing each other. So the invention was meant to bring the ideal getting closer, and the reality subject to renegotiation from time to time. And therefore, then the notions of Indonesia as one nation, one state should be adjusted because of the fact that we are not one identity. And the making of new identity was by accepting, by making as if Pancasila is fixed, but then we practically renegotiating from time to time. Because what we have is the 100 of nationhood within one state. So then, as I said, Pancasila is a tool to engineer the idea of unity and diversity. So we are united in having or going toward a particular value, particular ideas, and we still departing from different starting points. But then we are willing to stay as Indonesia, and we never demand an absolute consensus. If there is an absolute consensus, this is a fiction upon which then we are willing to adopt the unity. But then allows us to be realistic in looking at the diversity we are engaging. So then the invention of Pancasila was matter of fixing and bridging the demand to have one ideal with one reality, and what are the ideal subject to the thinking from time to time. During the authoritarian rule, we fix Pancasila according to what government meant. But as the government losing its popularity, then the government give up its monopoly in interpreting Pancasila, and then after that Pancasila was left as an open ideology, meaning that everyone allowed to interpret Pancasila as far as they are willing to dialogue their interpretation to others. And the willingness of dialogue, the willingness to engage in dialogical mechanism is what really unite Indonesia. So the idea of fixing, the seemingly fix, is the room for maneuver and the room for remaking the state from time to time. And this is important because we are so diverse, we come from different background, and making illusion of using having one imaginary as illusion, but the illusion is useful to make it practically possible. Otherwise, we don't want to talk to each other. By conceptualizing this way, then, what we do have is democracy in the making from time to time. During the authoritarian rule, the state was claiming that it was a democratic state. People, especially those who are exposed to international discourse on democracy, was refusing to accept it. But still, we still rely on state in making public lives workable. And because of the changing historical struggle from time to time, then the keeping process of redefining what Pancasila entails is important. But what really important here is one symbol, one generic idea upon which we rely on. So the specificity was subject to negotiation, and the willingness to negotiate, to reinterpret, is what really at stake, and therefore then the dynamic of public life also implied the democracy in the making from time to time. Okay, the second thing that democracy entails is that, as I said, reality is socially constructed. So making the constructions workable is really what really matters. We don't have to be coming to them in an absolute meaning of things, because the flexibility in reinterpreting from time to time, making the dialectical process between the unity and diversity workable. So by treating religion, national state, and democracy fiction, then we live with something functional. What really missing is fixed meaning, and reinterpretation of meaning allows the changing context, the changing of historical trajectory, the shifting from one regime to the other are still governable. So the willingness to allow vagueness of meaning, vagueness of Pancasila, the vagueness of the so-called religion and so forth is important, because this is the room for everyone to do their good without necessarily justifying that they are wrong, because there are different ways of making good deed. Okay? For example, the radical and the fundamentalist movement, which try to monopolize the meaning of truly Islam, meaning that they set the ideal of Islam as fixed and there is no other interpretation. So those who are interpreting Islam different to their interpretations, they call it kafir or disbelief. And this is because of the fixing of the interpretation, and it's creates a problem because somebody else always being blamed, and on the name of the fixed meaning, then the radical, the fundamentalists justify the killing, justifies the harassment, justify the bombing, and so forth. And this is linked to the attitude of monopolize the meaning or making the term fixed. And because according to them, the ideal is fixed, then making revolutionary changing, including killing people, is the price to be paid. And therefore then on the one hand, making the religious as everything, but then they sacrifice important element like respecting of human being or protecting life and so forth. Okay, because of the context which are so diverse in a country like Indonesia, the context is changing from time to time, then what really favorable for us to bring democracy, religious belief, and nation state workable together is the interpretation of the ideal. The ideal is changing from time to time because there should be new reality to be brought about. When Indonesia was engaging in the discourse on religiosity rather than religious identity, then ethic of good Muslim, the ethic of making Islam practicable was allowing us to respect one another. And then because of the emergence of new reality from time to time, then contextual approach is important. So the reinterpretations and the changing of the situations is still governable because of the clarity of ideals is still negotiated from time to time, and fixation of religions is problematic. And for this reason, then transforming religious identity into religiosity become new ethic, and ethic is what really at stake. The shifting from religious identity making into the practice of religious belief, which allow the diversity of interpretations, is very vital in allowing the emergence and re-emergence of new reality, which we still call it democracy. And because of the demand for electoral politics, there has been strong tradition of mobilizing religious identity, and maybe making religious identity is unavoidable, but making religious ethic more prominent, meaning that the religious ethic and religious and value on democracy are compatible, and the demand for more respect to local community, local belief, and so forth are then re-emerging from time to time, and then the nation state of Indonesia keep reshaping. Okay, what I will try to say here is that democratization entails statehood and ethic of citizenship. So statehood is dangerous if the state are monopolizing meaning, and it happened through authoritarian rule. Typically, state on the name of public, on the name of everything, monopolize the interpretation of things. And in line with the idea of democracy as popular control, then popular controls are safeguarded by the ethic of good citizen. And therefore, making the statehood under the control of the citizen, allowing a human being or religious believer having new status as a citizen. So when the affiliations of religious group is important, within Islam we have the notions of umat or jama'ah, meaning that they are membership in the religious group. And to me, this is a matter of citizenship because within the brackets of ummah or jama'ah, they be able to provide good services like running education, running hospital services, and so forth. And then the expression of ethic, allowing public services to come about, and this run by the religious community rather than by the state bureaucracy. The next thing entailed within the notion of democracy is that the need to reinvent nationalism and nation state. As I say, in the Indonesian context, the state was interpreted as a bureaucratic entity, and therefore centralistic feature, central command was what really needed. But it turned out that when citizenship was getting more respect and local identity, local community gained more access to public control, meaning that we transform the notion of nation state, because nation state not necessarily centralistic, and having nation state which have popular support, and then the notions of populism getting more prominent recently, meaning that the way we interpret the features of nation state is changing, and this allows democracy in terms of respecting religious belief, human rights, and so forth, compatible with the feature of national nation state. Now, the last point that I want to make is that in order to make democracy work, it entails the notion of technology of power. I mentioned about Pancasila as a state ideology was technology for allowing state to control the public, but not necessarily using coercive power, because the discussion, the presentations of philosophical belief, philosophical justifications allow people to think and rethink, and then to have to engage in a dialogue. And the dialogical process was possible because of one symbol, state ideology or state identity, and so forth. So then, by making Pancasila as a tool of governance, well, state call it the state ideology, but to me, this is the work of technology of power, because people are being disciplined to interpret nationhood in particular way, and also to deal with the idea. The other idea, like unity of diversity or Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, is a jargon, and the working of the jargon, the working of the tagline, allows us to be aware of the importance of respecting diversity, and unity and diversity is some integrated element, should be in one go. And dealing with the paradoxical notions of unity and diversity is the trajectory of technology of power, which then allowing a diverse country like Indonesia governable because of the cleverness of the strategy of technology of power has been set in place. I think this is the point that I want to make to summarize. Democracy should be remade from time to time by taking into account religious belief and religious practice, because religious are politically contentious, and because of the contention of religion in politics, making democracy potentially threatened. Now, in order to make democracy compatible with the religion, the setup, political setup within democracy in operational, that is the institutional setup of nation state, should be redefined, should be transformed from time to time, and the changing in the way religion works and the changing of the feature of nation state from time to time make up democracy as a consequent product, and democracy rise and down, and the experiment in making compatible with the two are really the challenge in making democracy workable in Asia. Secondly, because of the importance of contextual approach in making democracy works, then we propose a contextualized way of looking at things. And by contextualizing, meaning that disagreement on meaning are subject to negotiation, providing that we let both religion, nation state, and democracy an empty signifier upon which we make real life happening. And thirdly, democracy as a fiction should be fixed through transformative process, contextualizing process, and therefore country-wise model of democracy or Asian model of democracy is foreseeable. Yes, global value is there, but the expression of global value into practice are specific inevitably. And therefore, then we are looking forward for global ethic of democracy on the one hand, but looking after also the specific feature of democracy which compatible with religion and nation state in every country from time to time. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.